and him kind of like explaining to me the connection you can make with athletics and analytics and how it can actually help my game.
Hello, everyone. This is Growth Mindset Podcast. My name is Arshak, and today's guest is Rana-Roop Singh Bhullar. And
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming here, joining us. It's really an honor.
It feels like an honor. I feel special being the first guest.
You're special. The more I researched about you, so let me give a little bit of introduction.
Yeah.
He's a graduate business analytics student at Loyola Marymount University, located here in Los Angeles, near the ocean. He's a professional athlete, and let me give you some details on this. He's currently ranked as number 3 in Norwegian men's tennis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
He's 3 times Norwegian junior doubles champion and Norwegian men's double champion, right? And you've been also voted as a captain for, I think, 3 seasons in a row for your team.
Yes.
This is just incredible. The more I researched about you, the more I got curious. And finally, we're classmates. We worked on some awesome projects together. Mm-hmm. Hi, Rana, and thanks for coming.
Oh, I couldn't ask for a better introduction. This feels amazing. No, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long journey, and I'm very happy that I'm doing my master's here at the LMU, and I'm able to meet and learn from a lot of my peers, especially you as well. We did a lot of projects together, like you mentioned, and I feel like those have been some of the most learningful moments I had in terms of growing, not only in academics, but in life also.
Amazing. I hope we can discuss some of that today. One of the questions I wanted to start with is that I think it's pretty unique to be an athlete to such a high degree, and at the same time do something like business analytics or data science. Could you describe kind of your weekly schedule of what you actually do? That'll be very interesting.
Yeah, so we just started our season now. So now it's not too structural because it depends on our matches, but for example, our fall. So Tuesday, Thursdays, we would have our 6 a.m. weight sessions from 6 to 7. And then we have tennis from 8 to around 11. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have usually tennis sessions from 9 to 11. And then some type of fitness conditioning that me and my roommate, Jose, he's also in this analytics program. Mm-hmm. Since our class schedule kind of interferes with our practice schedule, we have to make up our fitness sessions on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so, yeah, I would say the toughest days are obviously Monday to Wednesday. That's when I have my classes. So Tuesdays, Thursdays are the days I kind of try to do the most amount of homework and learn outside of the classroom, because we don't have too much time besides the class sessions and our practice. So I would say Thursday and Fridays, and most time during the week is when we don't have matches, where I try to do as much as possible, get all the schoolwork done and get prepared for the week after.
Wow. So to kind of, that's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. You've been doing. So to summarize, how many days a week you have? Is it 3 days a week you have trainings, and then?
We have practice 6 times a week, and we always have 1 day off. So it's either Sunday or Saturday. But yeah, it's more or less 3 hours to 4 hours of practice workouts 6 times a week.
Well, now I'm even more amazed at your performance in class, because if you've been doing all this on top of your performance, this is amazing. So you mentioned some of the competitions, right? So how does it work? Do you travel somewhere? For example, last semester, how was it at Loyola Marymount?
Yeah, so last semester, that's what's called for us tennis players an off season. So that means it's just individual tournaments. So we can travel with the team and represent LMU, but you're not playing LMU matches against other schools. It's just individually trying to catch college points, I guess. But now in the spring, I actually just came from a match today. We played UC Davis and we won. So we're 1-0 in the season. We're happy.
You won.
Yeah, we won.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I knew as soon as I won the match, I had to come straight here and get on the podcast. So it couldn't be better timing. And yeah, so for us now, since we're in season, we have about 1 to 2 matches every weekend. And it's I would say 60% of them are home, 40% are on the road. So then we'll either drive with the team, or if it's too far away, we'll fly with the team. And those are the periods where it kind of gets a little challenging with academics. This is my 5th year playing athlete D1 tennis, so I kind of had a share amount of experience when it comes to traveling. And my conclusion is it's not easy being on the road and trying to get the schoolwork in, because you have to kind of satisfy the professor's requirements, and at the same time you gotta perform well in practice and show up for team dinners and team breakfast, and you have to be part of the team. So it's like balancing 2 jobs, I would say. So I think knowing that in the fall, I tried to kind of maintain and develop this strategy, which I learned from you as well, like seeing your, I asked you a lot of questions in the fall about how I could become more time efficient, and you gave me a lot of good insights. I'm trying to just carry it over now in the season. As of now, there hasn't been too many school projects, but I know they're coming up, so I just have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they're definitely coming. You know, there are a couple of things you mentioned that I think some people might be interested in, especially people who are coming as international student or international student athletes. You mentioned D1, right? Could you elaborate on what does it mean, D1, D2? What is it and how it works in the United States?
Yeah, so for the athletics in America, it's under NCAA. They're the National Collegiate, I think, Sports Associations. I don't know what it stands for, but NCAA basically have Division 1 sports, Division 2, and Division 3. And so Division 1 is the highest level, followed by 2 and 3. And for example, in the tennis area, they have around 300 Division 1 tennis programs, I believe. So I would say any Division 1 program is very high in terms of like practice, workload, and the coaches are very serious about the program, because there could be some Division 2 schools, they're just trying to get by a little bit. They're not really that invested into kind of going deep and making good run in the nation. But I think any D1 school, which we are a part of here at LMU in our athletics, it's very competitive, very high expectation from their coaches. A lot of money is invested from boosters that are paying for equipment. The school are investing a lot of money, so you have to kind of provide results as well. So the pressure is high, but you also get treated better. So it's a good feeling, I guess.
And I guess you're sure providing the the results, right, so far?
So far, we're doing good, and let's just hope it stays that way.
Awesome. So you also mentioned that a 5-year, you said you've been playing here in the United States already for 5 years, right? So could you talk a little bit about where you studied before LMU?
Yes, of course. So my college athletics route has been pretty, like, it's all over the place, to be honest. So I did my bachelor's at Florida State University in economics and social science. And I came to Tallahassee, Florida, where the school is located, in 2016. So for any athlete, they can participate in athletics for 4 years. But then there is something called red shirt. Red shirt means that in case I get injured during one of those 4 years, and the injury is so severe that I'm not able to compete for that season, it's called a red shirt year. That means that year won't count as an athletic year. So you can basically do 5 years of athletics. So I had a wrist surgery my last year at Florida State, because I happened to get an injury that was pretty severe around this area. So I had a surgery. I had to sit out for 2 months, and then the coaches realized that I was not fit enough to play because of my wrist. So this past year, in I would say 2019 to 2020, and from this point on, knowing that I would redshirt, I was talking with my coaches about doing my last year of tennis at Florida State, but they did not have the program that I wanted to pursue. As I was, if I'm going to do masters, I knew I wanted to pick something that I'm really interested in, and something that I would like to use for my future personal interests, and perhaps if I go back to Norway as well. So it landed on something in California, which was very important for me to gain connections here and network around in California area. And when LMU reached out to me through email and explained to me about their business analytics program, I was very interested. I also was fortunate enough to speak with previous tennis players from LMU who did this program as well. And they said it was very challenging, and they said the professors are super helpful. It is challenging, but you get the benefit that you will learn extremely much in a short period of time. So it's very valuable. And I can say so far it's been very true. I feel like I learned so much, and I'm excited to learn more as well.
Awesome. You know, actually, you just keep answering the questions that I prepared on your own. I can just listen. Amazing. Thank you.
I know so at this point. I know you too well at this point. I know what you're going to ask next.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. So you mentioned a few things. You mentioned that you chose this program, right? You mentioned that it is a challenging program. So one of the questions, could you talk a little bit more about this process of choosing the program? Was it like just straightforward? They just approached, you said yes, or was there any, because I think we discussed a little bit about it, wasn't that easy to kind of decide.
Yeah.
So
No, you're asking very interesting questions because these are things that was way different for bachelors. So for being an athlete, this is just my perception of it. If you're these pretty good athlete and a school wants you to get into the bachelor's program, I would say is pretty easy for a lot of schools. The coaches are able to kind of then like explain that this player has this type of ability, why the school would need him, and if his or her grades is not that well, I feel like the coaches at the admission board are able to kind of justify that, give that person a chance. But when it comes to a master's program, there's I don't know if any rules of this, regardless if you're an athlete or not. I feel like it's very fair, it's straight, same for everyone. I'm not saying the bachelor part isn't fair because they all end up doing great, but it's definitely how to apply the same way that every other person has to apply with, which I don't think was the same, which I don't think was the route I did for my bachelor's. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I had to write an extremely long essay. I was spending a lot of time invested into kind of impressing these professors and just be as genuine as possible. I didn't want to make anything up. My first 2 years at Florida State, I did not perform my best in terms of academics. I was just extremely invested into the game of tennis and my development. So for me, if tennis went well, I was just satisfied with school. I didn't care too much, which kind of like kicked me in the back in the future when I learned and I look back. My coach always used to tell me at that time that everything matters in terms of like warm up, changing the equipment of your rackets and grades. And as soon as I start to get like a system and build a good routine and my grades start to get better, that's when I kind of start to learn how to balance everything. So I had to explain that in the email I sent them, like, yeah, my first 2 years, I got these and these grades. I'm not trying to like hide anything. I wasn't just invested into school. I had a different priority. I was still working hard, but not in academics. And I had to kind of like justify, like look at for my junior year and above where I did extremely well and in important classes. I think that kind of justifies of my interest in the subject and how I want to pursue this at LMU as well. I think that was kind of the main point in the essay that I had to write, just prove why those 2 years was the way they were and how passionate I am in working hard and how I can prove it. And I think it's been going very good so far.
Yeah, right. I actually want to ask, since I witnessed that it is going pretty great and you are performing both, in academics and in sports now. So would you share some kind of advice? Like imagine you're giving advice to Rana a couple of years ago, or even when you just started your bachelor. So maybe some of the student athletes, international student athletes who want to start a bachelor's or master's, could you give them some advice? Because it seems that you went through this, struggles, and finally you're at the place where you got everything covered, right? Kind of.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So
any advice?
Like if I had to bring like a short quote, I would just say like how you do anything in life is how you do everything in life. Mm-hmm. And like my coach always used to tell me like my freshman year that the better I perform at school, the more opportunities I'll get. And he was extremely happy that I was performing well in tennis, but I didn't quite understand that quote when he explained it to me. But when I started to understand how a lot of athletes who performed well in school, because sports won't last forever. I don't know when I'm gonna stop playing tennis, but it's not gonna last forever. So being able to perform in academics as well, using the resources you have, that's probably the biggest advice I would give to international students who wants to come to the US, regardless of athletics or not. Just use your resources, try to network as much as possible, and be open to learn. That's what I think is the biggest thing. I was very and close with my teammates, only the FSU men's tennis team, my first 2 years in bachelor's. And but as soon as I started to realize that I have so much resources around me in terms of the university, the things they provide to help with resume, even help you for a job interview, and just network with other internationals at the university, I think that helps people grow a lot. And I think that will make the journey even more fun. So I think for any international students, just use your resources. Don't be shy to network and try to learn as much from everyone.
Awesome. I think at this point we have a pretty good understanding of like kind of your athletic background and everything. I think people might be also interested in, okay, now you're doing business analytics and data science and all those things. Did you have any prior, for example, programming knowledge? Like I know we're, taking Python classes, R classes, a lot of machine learning. Did you have any kind of prior exposure to that, and how it's been for you so far?
Yeah, so in terms of like any internships, I haven't had anything else besides sports or athletics. So I don't have any experience. But I can say there was during my senior year when I was doing my bachelor's, there was one class I took that was called Introduction of Business Analytics. And I gained a very great relationship with that professor. And I still talk to him till this day. And he has studied Masters of Business Analytics, and he teaches this class, obviously, that I took. And after talking to him and him kind of like explaining to me the connection you can make with athletics and analytics and how it can actually help my game. Because he would, for example, have extra credit curriculum in this class where they would show up their tennis matches and they would analyze like how many times would, for example, Rana win when he serves compared to when he returns. And they would find statistics out of this. And then he would show them to me. And it just, I don't know, like a light bulb went above my head. And I was like, wow, like,
wow. I can do this, right?
Yeah, this is something I could do. And it's so like insightful and interesting. And even though I didn't have any experience with Python or Studio or MySQL, I'm just very interested in learning new things. I think it's cool. I think it looks very cool when you're doing coding and you're able to perform and manage to do your tasks. And I just think it's a great tool to have on your belt in terms of how everything is becoming so tech savvy. So I think it's definitely a big market for it. So that's why I want to perform as best as I can and learn as much as possible, even though I didn't have any experience.
Right. There was a moment you said it is cool, and you started kind of smiling. I want to get a little bit more of that. So could you remember maybe like the coolest project or something, like the most exciting part? Because we've been taking 5 courses together, right? 5 classes, and there were a lot of projects in all of them, each of them. So could you remember the one that brings the most smile to your face, feeling like, wow, this was awesome, this was cool? And maybe tell us a little bit about that.
I think the first project that we had with Professor or Dr. Seal, it was about real estate data. And my sister actually is trying to invest into real estate, and she's has started actually. So I'm also interested in this area as well, something I would do in the future in terms of making investments into real estate. But I always had a thought, okay, this sounds very cool. I had some books, I read them, like I was trying to like gain knowledge on this aspect, but I never actually knew properly, like where should I start, or like what should I do? How does the process work? Like how can I make the best possible decisions? And when we had this project with Dr. Seal, where we had to capture data and like information online from, I think it was like 600 properties or even in the thousands, I don't remember, from a certain specific area we want to look at, and then be able to analyze them, clean the data, and make patterns in order to help our client, which was the task for our project, to make the best investment predictions. So as I was doing this, it was extremely interesting. I'm sure Dr. Seal hated me because I think I did around 12 Zoom sessions with him, because I wanted it to be perfect, but also at the same time,
I think he loved you for that, because maybe, you showed your passion.
Yeah, I was asking everything, and it wasn't just because like, how do I do this task properly so I can get an A? It was more like, okay, why can I collect this data and why should I not collect it from there? Or how can I trust this source? And why do I, for example, insert these dummy variables? What will that affect the Tableau charts we're making? I just thought everything was so interesting, because this is something I would like to do for myself, my future investments that I want to make in the future.
So if I understand you clearly, right, let me try to summarize. So what I get from this is that it seems that business analytics tools, data science tools can be applied to anything. So as soon as you find a topic that is really interesting for you, everything becomes cool and interesting, and nothing, as some people might think, oh, like programming is boring or whatever. Exactly. Like it's very exciting. Yeah. Because you're looking into patterns of a topic that you're interested in, like sport analytics, I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is what the projects taught me. Before coming to the program, I didn't really know what to expect in terms of the projects we would have, and if it would just only be coding and just code all day. But I feel like it can cover everything, like you mentioned. If you're an NBA basketball fan, you can use analytics and collect data in terms of like the prediction of people getting traded from teams or their average cap salary, and just finding insights and patterns and being able to do this if you have interest. I think it's extremely cool. And I think why would not anyone want to have this type of skills? I just can't see it. I'm happy that I'm learning about it.
Thank you. You know, there's one thing that I think will be interesting to discuss that I learned from you, the concept of stay locked in, Rana, stay locked in. So maybe you could share with me again and with viewers, like what is that concept that it seems that you learned it from your coach and it helped you through some tough parts, some tough moments at the last semester, right? So what is that?
Yeah, so in the fall, for the viewers, I would always tell Arshak, you'd be like, okay, this is the project, okay, good luck, let me know if you have questions. And I would always end like, okay, let's stay locked in. And then Arshak talked to me some days after, like, what do you mean by stay locked in? Because it's interesting. And yeah, my previous coach at my previous school, when every time things got tough or he could sense people on the like very close to start complaining or maybe finding excuses, he would just always be like, okay, head down, locked in, just stay locked in. And for me, every time I heard that, it would happen in practices, in matches, when there's too many distractions around you, either the crowd or audience is making too much noise trying to get in your head, or if you're very tired. Every time I said stay locked in, I would just try to focus on one thing, and that's like the only task I have in front of me. So I applied this not only in tennis, but like we talked about, if it is extremely tough task we have in front of us, and it's supposed to be very challenging for us, that's when I try to, instead of maybe be getting distracted if I struggle, I will always say, okay, stay locked in. I'm not going to do anything else besides finishing this task. And that's how I'm going to stay locked in.
I like how you visualize this, you know, like it shows how you kind of eliminate the distractions, you focus on that one task and you just nail it, right?
Exactly. It's just one thing in front of me, nothing else.
Yeah. Great.
I've seen you utilize, I mean, I think you're the master of staying locked in just without knowing it.
Oh, I think I learned from you some tips as well, definitely.
That's awesome. The one thing we did, I remember in the last semester, we had, me and Arshak were in a group, and we had like this art studio group project. It has to be like 15 to 20 pages approximately. And we just had a quick talk the day before it was due, because it was a different exam I had to take. And then I remember you mentioned, Arshak, you were like, should we just spend 20 minutes and just try to write as much as possible, see where we end up? And I think in like 15 minutes, we had like 25 pages. It was like way too many pages. And I think just attack the problem instead of like postponing it. That was something I learned, and it really like showed off when we finished our paper in like 30 minutes. But obviously we had to clean it up and everything, but it just shows when you put in the work and just start with it without postponing it, you can really get the work done.
That's a combination of locked in and starting early. Something that I learned from Chrissy, from another our classmate, that I hopefully she will agree to join this podcast as well. Yeah, kind of that day, if we didn't start, we would postpone it probably for a couple of days. Yeah, and then like, hey, let's do it for 20 minutes here, and then before we know it, we just finished the whole thing.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think that was one of the best learning tools I've seen, because as we were all on Zoom, I guess it kind of kept everyone accountable. It's like you have another option to work, because you gotta stay locked in, and you have to be a good teammate. If we're all there working together, we don't want any of us to kind of not work. So I guess it kind of keeps each other accountable and makes it easier to get the work done. So I thought I called my mom even that day. They're like, you remember that 20-page paper to get done? Like, I finished in 20 with my group. She was like, yeah, let's go.
So if you could describe, for example, we don't have to name names or anything, but if you could describe like what is how the perfect professor looks like for you, or a perfect class, right? Like maybe you can combine the best traits from different professors and classes. How would you describe the best kind of professor?
Yeah, I can try to include some things that pops in my head pretty quickly. Yeah, so I think in terms of like class setting and everything, one thing I liked a lot about Professor Tao, this was the structure and how organized everything was on Brightspace, which is the program we use online to look at our classes and to-do list and whatnot. And in terms of like organizational structure, that was very good. Professor Wang, I really love their enthusiasm. Like she would not leave the classroom, or she would not give up on you until you understood it. If I was there and she asked Rana, did you get it? I'd be like, she would go.
You're gonna get it, right? You're gonna get it.
I'm gonna teach it to you right now, and you better like understand it. And it helps so much because it shows that she cares so much. And when she's so passionate about teaching us like her knowledge, it makes me also more open, I guess, like subconsciously to learn and take information into me.
There's always
go ahead.
There's always so much energy, right, in a room with her. Always,
I haven't really thought about it, but I guess energy, it really like affects everything. I feel like I get energized by being around her. And one thing I like a lot about Dr. Seal is how he uses everyday examples that we can kind of like relate to, and then quickly use it for his class lectures. Like it could be a slide rather than understand anything of that one sentence he brought up. And then he would just explain with like, you've seen it, like the pictures of the models, for example, like how we could use those to kind of explain different things in class. It'd be like, oh, okay, so that's really what it means. This is just a tough word that's on the PowerPoint that is there to just to confuse us. So I think the fact that he really wants us to learn what he teaches about using like everyday examples, I think that's very helpful.
So I want to ask you, I agree with all that. I just don't want to kind of repeat exactly what you said, because I totally agree with what you said. If I ask a simple question, I feel that our cohort is slightly divided in terms of R or Python. So what would be your choice? I understand that different tools for different tasks, but like overall.
If you asked me in the fall, I know it's just been like a few days now in spring, but if you asked me in the fall, I would say R Studio. But as of now, Python. I don't know if it's because the class we have now is more focused on Python, but during the break we had, I saw a lot of like videos and just read articles about how Python, like what you can use it for and how broad it is, and you can create so many things with it. I think I'm fairly good at RStudio after the project we did, but I do want to dig deeper into Python because, and I find it the most interesting right now because of due to the depth it has in terms of what you can do. So I think that's extremely interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like very applicable in very different areas, right?
Yeah, I look at it like it's like a deep ocean. You don't really know what's below at the bottom, but you just kind of have to explore and find your way out and see what you can use the tool for.
Could you maybe, this is a kind of a free-flowing question, right? We're having a nice conversation. Maybe you want to introduce some of your other interests or hobbies, or maybe some future plans, right? What is going to happen after you graduate? Because we're graduating pretty much this year in a few months. Yeah. So what are your plans professional wise? What are you looking for?
Yeah, of course. So I think the first step for me, because we have summer school with our capstone project, I would like to do an internship at the side of this school project we have, just so I can gain some type of analytical or business related experience. And as soon as I'm finished my master, I'm in the application process for applying for jobs. And I'm in this program, and this program is certified as a STEM program. So when a program is STEM certified, for us international students, we have 3 years. This is called an OPT visa. So I'm able to work in the US for 3 years instead of what is normally 1. But since we're a STEM program, we can study for work for 3 years in the US. So I would like to do the internship in the summer, then apply for jobs. And I would like to work, I don't know if it's specifically going to be 3. It could be 2 or even 1. I don't know yet. I don't have very strict plans on that. But I would like to stay in the US, work, gain some experience, and then by some point move back home to Norway, because I miss my family a lot and I want to be close to them. But also, I'm also keeping my options open, because depending on how I do in this season, in terms of my success and how I feel, I also would like to represent Norway on the national official Davis Cup team, which is like world championship for countries, I guess. So if things goes well, also I would like to pursue that right after college, and then maybe represent Norway as much as possible, and then after that study or work inside of the analytics business field. So
basically, as I can see, you're not giving up on any of these branches, right? You're keeping your sportsmanship going. You're keeping your business analytics going, right?
Mhm.
Do you think of kind of merging them into some kind of sport analytics or anything like, or a company
I've
that
thought
does
about
something
it a
similar?
lot, and I think that's the end goal. The thing about America is that in terms of sports analytics, it's such a big industry here compared to Norway. So if I want to pursue the tennis route, one thing I have to give up on is my ability to work in the US, which is a important factor for me because I think working in the US is gonna teach me a lot, open a lot of opportunities, and gain just meet new people in the work environment. So that's the biggest if, I guess. Like if
Mhm.
I want to continue tennis, I can't work in the US, which is extremely important for me, which is also a main reason I'm taking a STEM program, that I have the ability to work 3 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to give up on anything, but if ideally, if I could play tennis and then work inside the analytics field and do something inside of sports, that's
Mhm.
something I would be very interested in. But I'm open. I also would like to do anything in growing a business or working as a financial analyst. I think that's very interesting, and I would like to expand opportunities and work towards that direction for sure.
Sounds great. Yeah, I think you'll do just awesome because just based on we've known each other already for like half a year around.
Mhm.
I think definitely you'll reach the highest levels in whatever you choose.
That's awesome. It's so funny when we go to our lunch breaks and we see like nice cars driving by, and we're like, Arshak, that's the dream. Like I want that one. And you're like, nah, I'm more of a Porsche 911. I think that's so interesting. But like, yeah, I think I learned so much from you the last half year I've known you. And I think it's interesting to see how like each and every one in our class kind of grows throughout the year. I feel like I can already tell how much people are grown, including myself. And I also think it's interesting to see how tight of a bond our program has made so far. And we all want to see each other succeed. So I think that's I'm extremely happy to see that.
Yeah, and also interesting how like just talking about our program, right? I mean, this is not an ad or anything, but it is a very kind of a packed, dense program. It's a 1 year program. You just
Mhm.
mentioned that you get 3 years of STEM, right? You study for 1 year, you get 3 years of STEM. This is a pretty great bargain, right?
Like
People
one more.
study, I think, for 3 years for JD for law, right? And then they only have 1 year, for example. Like it's
Yeah,
the
in
opposite,
bachelor's also, you have 4 years of bachelor's and 1 year of working.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Also the location. So we might be able to work with a lot of companies here in Los Angeles. So this is a really nice place
It's like
to,
a win-win situation.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like a perfect balance between like we have a lot of US citizens in our class, but also a lot of internationals. And seeing also how we're all able to kind of, I know English is not the first language for some of the students, and it's interesting to see how they're able to learn, uh, but at the same time also learning English as well at the same time and getting better understanding. For me, seeing those people like thrive in the program and do great, it inspires me as well. I think that's amazing to see how the whole program kind of like helps each other up every time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I find that we're very diverse in terms of backgrounds, very diverse in terms of levels. It's just an incredible kind of a program
Yeah,
to be in.
I'm very
Um,
happy. It feels like a family kind of.
oh yeah, I feel this.
Yeah.
I would hug you if it wasn't quarantine and we weren't through Zoom. By the way, I'm looking, constantly looking at time. I know that I'm looking at the clock and I know that you're gonna get your booster today,
Yeah,
right?
I need that to attend the classes. I'm not too big of a fan of virtual learning.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Definitely, we were happy. We got lucky to have our first semester fully in person,
Mhm.
right? And we started with 2 weeks of online, and hopefully, so we're getting our boosters and everything, and we're going back to in person, right? When does it start? Is it Monday, right? This Monday.
Yeah, I believe so, Monday. I think some classes will probably remain online, if I'm not mistaken, some of them, but I'm happy that everything transitions to class because I feel like it's a lot easier to learn and ask questions when you're actually present in front of the professor. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like every time they ask the questionnaire, which one would you choose? I'm like in person, in person, in person.
I did every single one on the survey. I was like, in person, please,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the love of God.
So what if you could compare a little bit, because it's like you're the same student, it's the same university, and you had both in-person experience and Zoom kind of online experience. So could you kind of try to compare briefly
Yeah,
pros and
so
cons?
I think, yeah, so I don't think there's a lot of pros online, to be honest, except if you have like distractions and you have a good tennis game going on board, you can watch tennis and a lecture. I'm being honest, that's the reality of Zoom classes. If I think the distractions are too many, and I want to, like you said, it's a 1 year program, which is a lot of information. So one lecture, you can't really waste one lecture because you're gonna fall so far behind. So being online, staring at a screen for those days we have like 6 hours of classes, it can be challenging, especially for people that are pretty active in general. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And going into class and just seeing the professor move, like walk around the classroom, like using hand gestures, trying to teach us the concepts and being very interactive. I think that's the thing I miss the most. And I think it doesn't really makes me kind of force myself to focus. Like you just walk in the classroom and like you're automatically locked in, like I said earlier, when you walk into the classroom compared to Zoom. And I also think besides that, for our program in general, I think it's way easier if you're in class because there's so much content we gotta read during the lectures or things we gotta type and code during the lectures. So trying to understand the professor, but also do coding at the same time online, I think that can be challenging.
Yeah, like this two monitor situation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually bought one monitor right before the online class started. It helped a lot, but it's still like I prefer in class teaching 100%.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm mindful of the time. I want to thank you so much. This is, the first podcast, and I think it's been amazing. I got to know more about you, and both through research, through preparation, and in this conversation. So hopefully, you're getting your booster today. Hopefully, we're starting this in-person new session, second semester. Yeah, hopefully everything goes well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I feel like you were thanking me for doing this, and you were happy that I was. But I'm so happy that I get picked to do this because I love podcasts. I just love talking, get to know my classmates like on a kind of outside the classroom, and I'm honored. I appreciate it a lot, and thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. It's a lot of fun, and I think this podcast has a great future.